Hey there guys, so we're taking a look at Valorant running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5560U compared to the Ryzen 5 5560H. Now these two systems here do have some key differences between them. Specifically, the GPUs are different, with the 5560U having the Radeon 6 while the 5600H actually has the Radeon 7. Now in a game like this, the GPU itself is actually not the limiting factor. If you actually pay attention to the utilization on both of these, neither one is actually reaching 100%, and most of the time they're not even at their max clock. Now this game itself is actually extremely CPU limited, especially when you're running at the lowest in-game graphics settings, which this is set to. You really want to maximize performance in a game like this, so a lot of the times you're just going to be playing with the lowest settings anyway. Now I spent a good while playing on both of these systems, and what I found is that there was very little variance really in terms of performance from map to map. There was no real map that had any standout performance numbers, anything that was making things perform way worse or way better. It's surprisingly consistent across all maps on these systems, which was actually really impressive. Games like CSGO have a lot of variance from map to map, and it's really nice to see that you're going to get consistent performance across the board on pretty much every map in Valorant. They're all really well optimized, and it makes sense because of the fact that we are just extremely CPU limited here, but there are no maps that require more CPU or anything like that. The level of performance that we get in general is just very consistent. I think the largest gap that I saw from map to map was around 3 FPS in the 1% lows, and the averages had a variance of about 5 FPS at most. But what's really happening here is that the increased CPU performance of the 5600H is really helping to boost the overall 1% lows and averages here. In general, the averages weren't too far off from each other really, at least not in a noticeable way, but the improvement in the 1% low was actually noticeable. As both of these systems were hooked up to a 144Hz display, the extra FPS was very noticeable, and having that increase in the 1% lows in particular was really welcome to see. Neither system was really providing a bad experience in Valorant. Both are really fantastic. But if you are concerned about getting the maximum performance in gaming, getting the system with the 5600H is better here, and we are using the same Beelink SER5 system, just one with the Ryzen 5 5560U and the other one with the Ryzen 5 5600H. If you do pay attention to the temperatures though, there is a noticeable difference here, with the 5560U running at 75 degrees most of the time, while the 5600H is getting into the mid 80s. And depending on the game, sometimes it will start to touch very close to 90 degrees. Now this makes sense because of the fact that it does have a higher TDP going all the way up to 35 watts. It should be noted that the 5600H can actually go all the way up to 45 watts on specific systems, but Beelink limited this one to 35 watts, and it really makes sense because of the fact that the chassis that it's in really cannot handle a higher TDP than this. This is already kind of pushing it because the system does get noticeably louder than the system with the 5560U. I will say that if you're in a hot environment where you know that the temperatures that you're going to be getting on here are going to be pushing past the 90-degree temperature range, you are better off getting the 5560U, because what you want to avoid most is thermal throttling. And unfortunately, you're going to get that if you're in an environment that is extremely hot and you're running this Beelink system with a 5600H. And if you're going to be to the point of throttling, you might as well get a more efficient system overall that's going to run quieter. In general, both systems provide a fantastic gaming experience in this particular game on here, but there is at least a noticeable improvement with the 5600H. But anyways, I hope you found this quick comparison between the two interesting. If you did, be sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next one.